The General is a seriously important unit that is underutilised by many new players, and it doesn't help that the game isn't great at explaining all of the benefits a General provides. By the end of this video, you'll be using Generals to their full potential. If you find this content useful, please consider subscribing for more strategy game guides. Every like and comment helps to boost the video into the YouTube algorithm. Any support is much appreciated. With that out the way, let's get into the video. Have you ever lost a battle where you were sure your army was the same size as theirs, if not bigger, but they still annihilate you? If you're experiencing this, the chances are your opponent is using a General more effectively than you are. A quick note that throughout this video I will occasionally refer to the Patriot unit, because they have all of the same special abilities as a General, and more, but I will be creating a separate video with a deep dive into Patriots to explore their unique abilities. So first up, how do you get a General? Most likely, your first General will be your Patriot. Once you're in the Second Age, otherwise known as the Classical Age, you can build your Senate building, choose a government, and your Patriot will appear. You can also create Generals from your forts when you hit military level 2. Alright, the building name changes as you advance through the ages, from fort to castle to fortress then redoubt. You can get a General from any of these. The General can't attack other units or buildings, they simply stand there cheering on your troops, providing passive benefits. But they do have an ace up their sleeve in the form of 4 special abilities: Forced March, Create Decoys, Ambush, and finally, Entrenchment. Let's take a look at each of those in detail. Forced March is a very popular ability, probably the most popular. It increases the speed of all units within range for a short time. This is incredibly useful in almost any situation, whether you're attacking your enemy or defending. Having a highly mobile army is important, as it enables you to quickly move your army to defend your territory or take the initiative with the counterattack, or in my case, retreat quickly when losing. It's especially useful when it speeds up your siege, as they are painfully slow to move around. If you have more than one General, you can use Forced March multiple times, but you'll notice the speed of the Generals themselves doesn't actually change at any point. Next up is Create Decoys, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It creates a bunch of units that, as far as your enemy is concerned, look exactly like the rest of your army, but you'll see them as see-through ghosts. You can do a few things with this. If you're defending and waiting for reinforcements, having these decoys can soak up the damage from a larger army, giving you more time to counterattack or just reinforce. A more offensive approach would be to send the decoys to attack your enemy to distract and lure your enemy's army, while your main force attacks from somewhere totally different. The decoys hang around for 2 minutes 45 seconds initially, but this can be increased by researching strategy at your fort. More on that later. They don't cause any damage, and it only takes 1 hit to kill them, so a more experienced player won't be fooled for long, but don't underestimate how useful decoys can be, especially when playing against a toughest AI, who will often have a larger army than yours at the beginning of the game. Ambush is not an ability I use often, I must admit, but in effect it makes your nearby units invisible for a limited time. Although there are units and buildings your enemy could have that will still be able to spot them, such as scouts and lookouts. Being able to turn invisible, though, is always useful, but it can be tricky to keep your units together and their cover will be blown as soon as they attack. But you can see an example of a commando sneak attack using ambush to get around the enemy defences to cause some serious damage to their buildings. This is definitely not something I could pull off in a real game, but it would be fun getting away with this move against a friend who's not expecting it. As with the other abilities, this can be improved by the strategy research at your fort, by extending the amount of time the units are invisible. But ambush won't turn units invisible if they've engaged in combat within the last 33 seconds, so it's more about planned attack than a way of retreating. Finally, we have Entrenchment, which you can only do in your own territory and is very much a defensive measure. I like the idea of reducing the incoming damage to my units, but it doesn't protect against flanking damage, and also means your units have to stand still. It's not the best, but I'm sure there are those that have found interesting ways of using it. Personally, I can think of better ways to defend a city, such as using the garrison feature, which I'll discuss in a future video. Each of these special abilities consume the General's craft. It takes 1000 craft to use any special ability, which recharges over time, but if you have more than one General in your army, they can use a special ability each and recharge separately, so there are clear benefits to having more than one General. When you select your General, these 4 special abilities are shown to you in the bottom left corner, and you can also see the amount of craft they currently have. but the general also has passive abilities that are much more difficult to spot. A general will grant a +2 armour bonus to all nearby units, including himself. This is the amount that is taken away from each attack against your troops. For example, a phalanx heavy infantry unit from the Second Age has an attack strength of 15. With a general near your troops, this attack strength is reduced to 13. That's a just over 13% damage reduction every time the heavy infantry attacks. And when you consider that's every single enemy unit, every single time they attack, it really adds up. But it doesn't stop there. If you go to your fort, or castle, whatever it's called for the age you're in, you'll see two different technologies that can be researched. The fortification and technology improves the fort itself. However, the strategy technology on the right is very powerful indeed. The strategy line of technologies affects both your generals and your spies. It makes them faster and cheaper to produce, amongst a few other things. But the best part is the armour bonus increase. Starting at +2, it increases to +4, then +6, and then a whopping +8 armour bonus. Let's take a look at the difference this makes. As you can see, this makes a real difference in a fight. So much so, a seemingly inferior or smaller army can take on a larger army that's operating without a general. It's worth remembering though, with multiple generals, the armour bonus doesn't stack. So which nations have any general-related advantages due to their nation powers? Well, France has the power of leadership, which means they receive a free general for each fort they complete. In fact, France is an all-round underrated nation, so I highly recommend giving them a go next time you play. A less obvious one is Iroquois, who receive their Senate building for free, and it's built instantly. Alright, this isn't a direct advantage when it comes to generals, but your first general is likely to be your Patriot unit, which comes from the Senate building. As Iroquois, you will therefore probably build this before anyone else, and be the first to have a general on the field, in the form of your Patriot unit. Very nice. Now you have a better idea of how to use generals, we should spend a moment looking at how to counter the use of generals, seeing as they can be so deadly when used correctly. Focus firing everything you have on a general is an all-round good tactic. As soon as the general drops, the rest of the army lose access to their special abilities and the armour bonus. But this approach lacks finesse. I have a better idea for you. For something a bit more sneaky, you can actually assassinate the enemy general using a scout. Now it's worth pointing out, the scout doesn't receive their sniper rifle until the Industrial Age, which is age 6, but as soon as they do, well, you can see the results for yourself. Pew! As you can see, the general is a very powerful unit, probably the most powerful unit in the game. Remember that your Patriot from your Senate has all of the same abilities as a general, but creating more generals from your fort is always a good idea. Keep your general alive. Prioritise upgrading them at your fort and you will see a big difference when facing off against your enemy. Learning the hotkeys for their abilities is also a good way to quickly react to any situation. I know you guys love hotkeys, so here they are. The hotkeys are Q for Forced March, B for Entrenchment, Y for Create Decoys, and V for Ambush. They obviously didn't care about the hotkeys making sense, so you'll just have to commit those to memory, I suppose. Having multiple generals is also very powerful, but most important is to keep them alive. They will probably be the #1 target for your enemy, and their generals should be yours too. As I said, I'll create a separate video about your Patriot unit, as there's quite a lot to discuss on those too. So look out for that video, which I'll be releasing shortly. If I've already released it, a card would have popped up at the top of your screen. Go check it out. As always, thanks for sticking with me. And to all my current subscribers, thank you for clicking that button. You are the most important people in the world. If you have any requests for future videos, please leave a comment, and I'll add it to the list. Have a great day, and long live Rise of Nations.